Hey reefers, welcome back to Grand Canyon Reefs, and today we're going to be touring the sump on the new Red Sea G2 tanks. And I'll be sharing the equipment that I have in my sump, some of the benefits of the Red Sea sumps, and also some of the cons that you should be aware of if you're looking to buy the new G2 Red Sea tanks. And don't forget, I'm doing another giveaway of Little Shop of Horror Zoas, shipping included, to anywhere in the United States, completely free. And all you have to do to enter is subscribe to the channel. Yep, it's that simple. The first winner actually just received his frag a few weeks ago, and it's looking great. So next month, that could be you. So I specifically have the new Red Sea 425 G2, but the sump layout and the functionality is pretty similar across all the different sump sizes. So the water will flow down the overflow and into the piping. And the plumbing is super simple and straightforward to assemble, and there's no cutting or gluing necessary at all, which is super nice. The water enters the sump in the front right, and you'll see the emergency drain in the back and the primary drain in the valve in the front, which feeds into my filter roller. As far as the gate valve, I know that the previous generation tanks had an issue with turning the valve after a few months of use, and I can safely report that the new valve is able to turn effortlessly after even 8 months of use, but it still has many issues, and I'll be making a video coming very soon to dive more into some of the issues that I and many of the G2 tank owners have been dealing with, so stay tuned. So as water enters the filter roller, it'll stay within the basket and disperse through the filter fleece, which removes the detritus and waste while letting the water pass through. And on the right side, you can see the sensor, which advances the fleece whenever the basket fills with water, which means that that portion of the fleece is dirty. And this is my first filter roller, and I absolutely love it and would recommend it to anyone who has a sump and is still using socks. It's definitely worth it. So, excuse the slight mess in the sump. I do try and siphon and clean the sump out about every 2 to 3 months, and I'm definitely due for cleaning soon. And on this messy sump floor is where you'll see I store my titanium heater, some extra ceramic frag holders, and my Apex probe lines. I also have a large stack of different biological medias like Polyblab ceramic blocks and ceramic medias that are in a mesh bag. And I keep this as an area for a lot of biological media to grow in other organisms that's completely out of the light. So it's essentially a different version of live rock. And if anyone is in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and if you're ever looking to jumpstart a tank, you can always hit me up and I'm more than willing to help. So right above this stack of media is where my dosing lines sit. And I have a Neuro 3, which mixes those right as they're dosed. And it also helps keep a lot of water movement going within the sump. And in the back is where I have my Bubble Magus Curve 5 skimmer, and I am currently setting up a recirculating CO2 method, but I have been running into a couple issues that I know some other people have been as well, and I'm using Fish of Hex's 3D printed parts, and have my CO2 media very high up behind the tank, but I'm still experiencing some bubbling and liquids getting pulled upwards towards the collection, past the collection cup and towards the media. So if you guys have any tips on how to fix this issue for recirculating CO2 scrubbers, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. And when I do get it resolved, I'll be sure to make an update on that because it seems that pH is the talk of the town right now. And next to the skimmer, I have a few pieces of rubble rock, which are covered in tons of different types of beneficial sponges and filter feeders. And I also have a BRS reactor, which I run carbon in and change around every 1 to 2 months. Now, the pros and cons of these new G2 Red Sea sumps. So I definitely love how open they are. They have removable baffles in a lot of sections, so it enables you to choose what you put in the different sections, and if you want a filter roller or not. It just gives you a lot of options. And it also does fit snugly in there, which is nice in its own right. But that also ties into the main con of these Red Sea G2 tanks, is that they fit very snugly within the stands. And as you can see here, I have just a couple inches essentially on each side, which doesn't seem like a huge issue. But if you have anything like pumps or magnets or anything that attaches to the side of your sump, it has to be very, very narrow essentially to be able to fit on the left and the right and the back. And so for the dosing lines, it works out okay because my bracket isn't too big. But for where I have my ATO placed, which is in the return section, like many people will, the ATO is held up by some magnets, and the stock magnets were a little bit too big to be able to fit, and I couldn't push the sump forward more because then doors wouldn't close. So I had to go to Ace and buy some super thin magnets, which then were able to hold up the ATO doser. So just something to keep in mind when you're having equipment for these new sumps is that the space on the left and the right, you probably have an inch total, and you have to choose how you want to spend that between the left and the right. So like I have maybe an eighth of an inch or maybe a little bit bigger on my right side, and then my left side I have like 3/4 of an inch or almost a whole inch, so that I can have my Nero 5 and my dosing pumps, and I also store like algae clips in there as well. But it's still very, very tight and doesn't allow for any sort of extra equipment essentially. And then the back especially, because you can't really move it too far forward and still have the doors closed, the back really requires you to only have around a half an inch or so for any sort of magnets or any equipment back there. So it is nice that it fits in there snugly, but that also is a potential downfall if you have large equipment or a lot that you were trying to fit in these new sumps. It can be not accommodating to say the least. With that being said, outside of the kind of wonky gate valve and the kind of limited space on the left, right, and back of the sump, I really do like the layout of the sump. I think it's very large and holds a good volume of water relative to the tank. And like I said, the removable baffles really enable you to pick and choose what equipment you do and don't want and where you want to put it. And if you didn't want any baffles, you could really almost make it entirely just a large rectangular extra aquarium down here that you could have extra frag racks or anything like that. So I do really appreciate that aspect of these Red Sea G2 sumps, is how much space they give you and how flexible they are for different options. But I really do wish they would kind of restart with the valve and figure out why it's been having so many issues with changing the water level in the tank so often, and also maybe potentially adding a couple more inches or a half an inch or so on each side for different spaces of magnets or mounting options for different people's equipment. But all in all, I absolutely love my Red Sea G2 tank. I would definitely buy another one. If I were to get another Red Sea tank, I would probably get one of the Peninsula style because I love how they look and how they can look aesthetically in a room. But yeah, that's going to mostly wrap up today's video on this Red Sea G2 sump tour. The next video, which I'm almost finished editing, is going to be a coral warfare video that I'm having in my tank, as corals are starting to grow out very quickly. So stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to enter the giveaway of Little Shop of Horrors. Thanks so much, and happy reefing!